So now that I'm making this video, I guarantee like 3 of the teams that I mentioned in this thing are probably going to make the playoffs next year. But who's going to be the worst team in the NBA? We can still talk about this. I think the Chicago Bulls are a prime candidate. They are going to be entrusting a lot in Chris Dunn as their new young point guard. He was just not good for Minnesota last season, playing about 17 minutes a game. And he was inefficient, not productive, and I don't know what his avenue is to be a successful player in the NBA, but I don't think it's starting point guard. Dwayne Wade, I mean, the age is up there. He is just not as effective as a player as he once was. I mean, I think if he was in a position of being like the 3rd option on a really good team, then I think Dwayne Wade could still be pretty valuable for an NBA team, but given just all the young guys around him, on the floor at least, I don't know what he's going to do. Zach LaVine is hurt, and I don't know if he's going to be back opening day. And even then, who knows how effective he's going to be. It might not be an immediate bounce back from an injury. But even then, LaVine, I mean, he's an effective scorer, and he's definitely had some progress on that. But as an all-around player, defensive player, playmaker, things like that, I'm not going to entrust LaVine to do too much for Chicago. And then when we're looking at just the rest of their situation, I mean, Lauri Markkanen is probably going to be their starting power forward. He could be good, but very rarely do rookies actually lead you to more wins. And I don't expect him to do the same. Losing Jimmy Butler and already being a 41-win team, Chicago, I think, is a prime candidate for the worst record in the league. Now, the Brooklyn Nets are interesting. I still don't think they're going to be that good, but they have some intriguing players at this point. For one, they were like a semi-respectable team when Jeremy Lin was actually playing this previous year. And, I mean, we would hope that he's just going to be injured for this entire season. I mean, healthy for this entire season, excuse me. The recent acquisition of Allen Crabbe is interesting because, at the bare minimum, the dude is at least a floor spacer. And given Kenny Atkinson, who I think showed that he was a good coach last season, I think he could do some things with Allen Crabbe. They do have a rookie center in Jared Allen, who's, you know, perhaps he could grow into a nice NBA player. Do I expect it to happen in his first season? No, I expect the guy to have some problems, even if I'm going to make him look like Wilt Chamberlain in the footage, because that's just how I always do it. I don't expect them to be too good defensively because, I mean, just go down the list. Jeremy Lin, D'Angelo Russell, Allen Crabbe, a rookie center. Like, I mean, I don't know how much resistance they're actually going to be showing for the other team. But I mentioned D'Angelo Russell there. He's interesting, and I do think they're going to play Russell and Jeremy Lin together. I mean, I've talked about Russell in the past. I definitely am weary of how good the guy can actually be, just because of his lack of athleticism and not having any, like, distinct abilities on either side of the floor. Okay playmaker, good shooter, I would say, not good at finishing at the rim. We're just going to have to see with him. I think Brooklyn could be like one of those not good teams that's actually fun to watch, but I don't see a real way that they could be like a top 15 offensive or defensive team, so I think they're going to be pretty bad. Now we can talk about the Orlando Magic, who, to me, the roster is just so redundant and messy, and guys who do similar things, and it's just going to be a struggle for them on really both sides of the floor. I mean, offensively, like, Vucevic can post up every now and then. Elfrid Payton might be able to make a pass, but it's not like the guy can actually shoot the basketball. Aaron Gordon doesn't have any distinct abilities as an offensive player. I mean, he's good at rolling to the rim, sure. And then defensively, I mean, Evan Fournier is probably their one offensive player. I'm not going to ask him to do much of anything on the defensive side of the floor. The rookie, Jonathan Isaac, I mean, I like him. I don't know if he's the type of guy who's going to make a huge impact as a rookie, partially because he might be playing the same position as Aaron Gordon unless he can be converted into a small forward. And even then, I think he's a low-usage kind of guy who makes a good impact, but that sort of thing usually takes a while to grow. Vucevic sucks on defense, and he might end up playing a decent amount of time. I just don't see anything these guys are going to be really good at. I feel like It's a team that needs a bit of addition by just subtraction. This is the type of team that needs to make like a 3-for-1 sort of trade where they send out 3 guys, they take 1 guy back, and then suddenly the roster composition is just better. But even then, I still think they're going to struggle. The Phoenix Suns, I don't see a lot of good defensive players in this team. Marquise Chris was awful defensively this previous season. Devin Booker still has a ways to go as a defender and an overall player. I mean, his playmaking, his efficiency all need to improve. Now, there's a chance that that could happen because, of course, the dude's scoring potential is definitely there. He put up, 22 points a game this previous season, I'm pretty sure. But I fear that he might just be a one-dimensional guy. We're going to have to see what happens this season for him. Tyson Chandler may be an awesome rebounder. Defensively, he is not what he once was. I mean, at one time, the guy was potentially the best defensive center in the NBA and super effective, but at this point, he's not doing too much. Eric Bledsoe, I mean, I like him, no doubt about it. I think he's still this team's best player. But how much of an impact is he going to make? And then you have the rookie Jackson. Similar thing with Markkanen. How much better is he really going to make them in his first season? I don't know how much he's really going to contribute to actually winning basketball. So those are 4 teams right there. We're going to go through a whole list of guys now. For the Knicks, I mean, if you have Porzingis in his 3rd season, that might be enough to where you're just not the worst team in the NBA. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Carmelo Anthony. Maybe Melo plays and can provide them a few more wins. Maybe he gets moved. I really don't know. If we talk about the 76ers, I mean, just having Joel Embiid could be enough because we know about his on-off numbers and how ridiculous they were last season. Ben Simmons might be one of those rookies who actually does contribute to some winning basketball just because of how good of a playmaker he's apparently going to be. Markelle Fultz, I'm a little lower on, but I still like him quite a bit. The Dallas Mavericks have the 2nd best coach in the league in Rick Carlisle, and he's been keeping them afloat for a while now. Add to that Dirk, Nerlens Noel, Dennis Smith, who can hopefully just be okay, as well as a bunch of shooters, and I could see a way for them to get to at least 30-something wins. The Indiana Pacers, the roster itself isn't bad. Victor Oladipo is at least a guy. They have a really good point guard rotation in Darren Collison and Corey Joseph. Well, relatively a good point guard rotation. And then Miles Turner's going into his 3rd year. They do have Nate McMillan, however, and Nate McMillan is not a good coach, so they could be pretty bad. On the flip side, the Atlanta Hawks have Mike Budenholzer, who's one of the better coaches in the NBA. And I also would say Atlanta has a lot of floor spacers. Marco Bellinelli, Ersan Ilyasova, Kent Bazemore, Dwayne Dedmon's going to be a rim protector for them. And they have Dennis Schroeder, who's at least not a terrible creator. So I could see a way for Atlanta to be at least like an okay bad team, if that can be a thing. Who knows? And then for the Lakers, I'm banking on improvement from Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, and I think Brook Lopez could actually contribute some wins for them. And then for Sacramento, I mean, the additions of George Hill as well as Zach Randolph could bump up their wins a bit. So we'll just see.